Can I start, Prabhu?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So maybe devotees will join. Before that, I'll say my prayers. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our ISKCON Portland Srimad Bhagavatam class. So before I start, reading sloka, I will say prayers. Okay. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunadhanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today's verse I'm going to share. Today we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 13th chapter, 47th verse. I'm going to share my screen and we will read the translation. Yes. So today's verse is 113:47. So I'll read the verse 3 times. Ahastani sahasthanam apadani chatushpadam Phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. This is a very, very famous verse. Ahastani sahasthanam apadani chatushpadam Phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. Ahastani sahasthanam apadani chatushpadam Phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. Anyone would like to read?
Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatushpadam Phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. Thank
Wonderful.
you, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Vidagdha Prabhu, do you want to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatuspadam Phalguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So we will read the synonyms. Ahastani, those who are devoid of hands. Sahasthanam, of those who are endowed with hands. Apadani, those who are devoid of legs. Chatushpadam, of those who have 4 legs. Falguni, those who are weak. Tatra, there. Mahatam, of the powerful. Jivaha, the living being. Jivasya, of the living being. Jivanam, subsistence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are the subsistence of the strong, and the general rule holds that one living being is food for another. That is, jivo jivasya jivana. One living being is food for another. Purport: a systematic law of subsistence in the struggle for existence is there by the Supreme Will, and there is no escape for anyone by any amount of planning. The living beings who have come to the material world against the will of the Supreme Being are under the control of the supreme power called Maya Shakti, the deputed agent of the Lord, and this Daivi Maya is meant to pinch the conditioned souls by threefold miseries, one of which is explained here in this verse. The weak are the subsistence of the strong. No one is strong enough to protect himself from the onslaught of a stronger, and by the will of the Lord, there are systematic categories of the weak, the stronger, and the strongest. There is nothing to be lamented if a tiger eats a weaker animal, including a man, because that is the law of the Supreme Lord. But although the law states that a human being must subsist on another living being, there is the law of good sense also, but the human being is meant to obey the laws of scriptures. This is impossible for other animals. The human being is meant for self-realization, and for that purpose he is not to eat anything which is not first offered to the Lord. The Lord accepts from his devotee all kinds of food preparations made of vegetables, fruits, leaves, and grains. Fruits, leaves, and milk in different varieties can be offered to the Lord, and after the Lord accepts the foodstuff, the devotee can partake of prasada, by which all the suffering in the struggle for existence will be gradually mitigated. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.26. Even those who are accustomed to eat animals can offer foodstuff not to the Lord directly, but to an agent of the Lord under certain conditions of religious rites. Injunctions of the scriptures are meant not to encourage the eaters of the animals, but to restrict them by regulative principles. The living being is a source of subsistence for other, stronger living beings. No one should be very anxious for his subsistence in any circumstances, because there are living beings everywhere and no living being starves for want of food at any place. Maharaja Yudhishthira is advised by Narada not to worry about his uncle's suffering for want of food, for they could live on vegetables available in the jungles as prasada of the Supreme Lord, and thus realize the path of salvation. Exploitation of the weaker living being by the stronger is a natural law of existence. There is always an attempt to devour the weak in different kingdoms of living beings. There is no possibility of checking this tendency by any artificial means under material conditions. It can be checked only by awakening the spiritual sense of human being by practice of spiritual regulations. The spiritual regulative principles, however, do not allow a man to slaughter weaker animals on one side and teach others peaceful coexistence. If man does not allow the animals peaceful coexistence, how can he expect peaceful existence in human society? The blind leaders must therefore understand the Supreme Being and then try to implement the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God or Ramarajya is impossible without the awakening of God consciousness in the mass mind of the people of the world. So, Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Mukam karoti vachalam pangvam langvayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयामुदीरयेत् नष्टप्राये स्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. Dear devotees, Hare Krishna. So, thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you all in this way. Before going and to discuss our verse, it is always better for us to actually understand the different sections of this particular chapter, so that we can understand where we are in this chapter. So initially, I want to just explain and discuss this chapter's name is itself is Dhritarashtra quits home, right? So we were discussing for the past few weeks this chapter, and basically the first 1 to 7 verses there are different sections in this chapter, and first section is from first verse to seventh verse. Vidura returns to Hastinapura from pilgrimage. We all know that Vidura returns and how he was welcomed, and how his relatives affectionately cried for him. What was the reception for him? How they treated Vidura, sumptuously feeding him. Bhuktavantam means sumptuously fed, and Vishrantam, given sufficient rest and comfortably seated. Asinam Sukham Asane. So he was comfortably seated. That was happened in first 7 verses, and the next section starts from 8 to 13 verses. Conversation between Yudhishthira and Vidura. So Yudhishthira initially, inquires, and glorifies, that is the way of, receiving the elevated souls. So Yudhishthira, started glorifying and recollects the protection of, Vidura, how, he was actually protecting all the Pandavas, because Pandavas, they didn't have their father. And he also inquires about his travels, and he actually glorifies, devotees like you are like holy places personified, wherever you go, that place is purified, and all these things. And then Vidura also talks to Yudhishthir Maharaj, and he doesn't actually reveal the news of annihilation. And after that section, for between 14 to 17 verses, Vidura's purpose for staying in Hastinapura. Vidura reveals his purpose, because he reveals that for the benefit of Dhritarashtra, he came back to the palace. Otherwise, he would not have come, basically. And meanwhile, identity of Vidura was explained, in one of the some verses, and Vidura says the power of insurmountable time, and etc. etc. And from 18 to 28 verses, Vidura chastises Dhritarashtra, get out of this immediately, fearful time is approaching you, and death is coming, death is approaching. You don't understand the power of time, all your relatives died. Are you able to realize that, and moreover, I could see the visible symptoms of old age in you. I'm also astonished to see your urge to live still, after losing all your relatives, and after you have become very bold, and even the death is going to approach you, but still you really want to survive. And what kind of degraded life you are actually living, Dhritarashtra, my dear brother. And you are a Krupana, you are a miser, yeah, become Dhira, at least you cannot become a Narottama, but become at least Dhira and go home, just go live to the north. In the 20th verse, he says, live to the north. Directly he gives instruction. And from 29 to 37 verses, actually, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura leave, and Maharaja Yudhishthira laments. So Maharaja Yudhishthira, once he gets up in the morning, he was not able to see his uncle, aunt. So he started lamenting. Dhritarashtra leaves home and he started lamenting. Chaste Gandhari wife also, followed, her husband, and Yudhishthira discovers about their departure, and Yudhishthira anxiously asks Sanjaya, what happened? Where did they even go? Then, actually, from 38 to 60 verses, the last section where we are right now, Narada Muni, when actually Dhritarashtra was feeling so despondent and lamenting, for their blaming himself, that maybe I'm ungrateful, maybe I have not, taken good care of them, or something like that. He was blaming himself because he's such a wonderful soul that we can actually understand even after the battle of Kurukshetra, right? He was taking responsibility on him. In fact, actually, he was not the reason for for the Kurukshetra battle. The reason for Kurukshetra battle was the wicked Duryodhana, but he was taking all the responsibility on him, and he was actually feeling despondent, and he was lamenting, right, at that time also. So he's such a wonderful personality, Yudhishthira Maharaj. So he was actually thinking he was a cause for, even now also, for the reason for Dhritarashtra leaving home. So then Narada Muni appears. And the last section we are in, Narada Muni shatters Yudhishthira's lamentation and illusion. In that, actually, especially in the subsection 41 to 50, Narada Muni philosophically means he adds tattva to that, philosophically dispels Yudhishthira's lamentation. Okay, in that section, actually, we are in the 47th verse, today's verse. Usually in a 41 verse, he says, everyone is under the control of the Lord. He started speaking philosophy tattva, like how he gives. He gives a lot of examples. In the 42nd verse, he gives how a cow is bound by a rope through its nose. Similarly, human beings are bound by Vedic injunctions. Vedic injunctions are Supreme Lord's orders. And in a 43 verse, he says how a player sets up and disperses playthings by his own sweet will. Similarly, Lord also brings men together and separates them by his supreme will. So he is actually making him understand that for everything there is a hand of Supreme Lord. And also lamentation in separation, 44th verse, lamentation in separation is only due to illusory affection. Right. And so in 45th verse, he says, give up your anxiety, which is because of ignorance, due to ignorance. So, and also 46th verse, very, very wonderful verse. Last week, actually, Prem Vadan Prabhu spoke. How can it's so meaningful? How can anyone protect others when he himself he's in the jaw of a serpent? That is, the body is always under the control of Kala, Karma, and Gunas, right? Kala, Karma, and Gunas. So now coming to the present verse, actually, very, very interesting verse, 47th verse. One living being is natural food for another law of existence, right? So here, Ahastani Sahasthanam, very famous verse. Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse in most of the Bhagavatam verses. The Ahastani Sahasthanam means the handless are prayer for those who have hands. Apadani Chatushpadam, those devoid of legs are pray for. I'm sorry, somebody is messaging and I don't have any control over that. Just give me a second. I will tell that Mataji, don't, please, Mataji. Yes, and Phalguni Tatra Mahatam, the weak are the subsistence of the strong. Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. One living being is food for another. So in this particular verse, now we are going to discuss. Just give me a second. Yeah. So now this is very interesting verse. Basically, the theme of this verse is love subsistence. Or we can also say the process of destruction by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything is arranged. This law of subsistence is basically arranged by the Supreme Lord himself, right? So this sloka was spoken by Narada Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And when Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting, Narada, a great personality, entered into the picture. As we earlier also discussed, in many times, like Narada Muni has a transcendental potency, that wherever and whenever his presence is needed, especially, his help is needed, inspired by the super soul within, Narada Muni enters into the scene, right? So not only in the case of devotees, but for the others also, like many example, we have seen in Bhagavatam also, right? Especially a dacoit named Ratnakar, everybody must be knowing, right? So in his life also, right, and Narada entered, and after that, he became Valmiki Muni. Like that, in Srimad Bhagavatam also, we can see many examples of non-devotees, lives. Narada Muni entering into non-devotees' lives and making them as devotees. Like Mrugari is there, right? The hunter Mrugari, cruel hunter. So he was actually hunting animals and killing them. Half killing them and enjoying. And then Narada Muni enters and instructs him, and he just follows Narada Muni's instructions, and he change, and everything is changed in his life, and he becomes a devotee, right? So here Narada Muni says, no need to lament for anything. They will be maintained. Don't worry about the maintenance of your uncle and aunt. In fact, everybody in this world will get maintained. Why not they? Everyone get maintained by the cycle of ahastani sahastanam apadani chatushpadam. Those who do not have hands will be the food for those who have hands. Who have hands? Actually, only humans have hands, right? Sometimes a chimpanzee looks like it has its hands, but most of the times it uses its legs only. So then now apadani chatushpadam. Apadani means having no padam, no feet. Meaning those who do not have legs will become food for those who have four legs. So who doesn't have actually legs? Like non-moving things like trees, herbs, creepers, right? They do not have legs. They have legs in one way, that one sense that they eat and drink through their legs, because the roots are there, right? So if you see, they eat and drink through their legs. So they are called apadani, having no padam. Now, Chatushpadam means having four legs. Like quadrupeds are animals that walk with their four legs. They eat apadani. Like meaning, see, who doesn't have legs? Non-moving things like, grass, creepers, right? Herbs, vegetables. And, the Chatushpadam means the animals who are having four legs, like, cows, other living, goat, cows, and other animals, they eat. So grass is also a living entity, but it has no legs with which to move, and thus it is eaten by cows and other animals. Such non-moving entities are food for moving animals. And in this way, the world is a constant struggle between the exploiters and exploited. The weaker is exploited by the stronger. This is nature's law. This is not a mistake or something like that. This is nature's law. It is, everything is happening, and also the process of destruction given by the Supreme Lord himself. So the translation is telling what? One living entity survives by depending on other living entities. Weaker living being becomes food for stronger living being. As per the law of subsistence, one jiva depends on the other jiva. How do we understand this? A weaker living being like a deer is a food for strong living being like tiger, right? Nothing to be lamented when a cruel animal like tiger or a lion for their subsistence kills and eats a lower or weaker beings, because it is the law of subsistence given by Bhagavan himself. Because a tiger needs some flesh of lower, living being, it will kill that living being and it eats. For them, there is no karma. For animals, we understand, right? So there is no karma. So in the last, so Narada Muni actually says we are entangled in the jaws of Kala. In the last verse, actually, Narada Muni says, right, we are entangled in the jaws of Kala, Karma, and Guna. And in this verse, Srila Prabhupada says we are entangled in the threefold miseries, and one of the misery is one of the miseries explained in this verse. What is that one? Everybody knows, right? We are in the midst of threefold miseries, because as when we have this material body, everyone who has this material body, they have to go through this cycle of birth and death, and also threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries? Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika, right? Adhyatmika means miseries caused by one's own mind and body. Adi Daivika means miseries given by the Lord by His will, and Adi Bhautika means miseries given by other living entities. Now, this verse is specially talking about the Adi Bhautika misery, that is, miseries caused by other living entities. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, by the will of the Lord, there are systematic categories of the weak, the stronger, and the strongest, right? So, if we go to the forest, we usually see strong eats weak and weak eats weaker. Weaker animals, right? And weaker animals, and bugs eat bugs, right? Weaker to weaker. It's a cycle of life. We see this in our daily, today day-to-day examples also. We see, right, lizards are there, especially in India. Here we don't see any lizards, but in India, lizards, they usually crawl on the wall and eat smaller living entities such as insects, snails, slugs, worms, spiders, beetles, and flies, right? So lizard eat that kind of food, and it is allowed, of course. And if we see frogs outside, our house, frogs eat insects, small invertebrates, like so small invertebrates, and also small vertebrates. Vertebrates are smaller than frog. But invertebrates means small insects it eats, and vertebrates means smaller than frog, like whatever is smaller than frog, it eats, like fish and everything. And frogs are eaten by snakes, and snakes are eaten by mongoose, and mongooses are sometimes eaten by human beings. Some people eat mongoose also. So if we go to China, of course they eat everything, right? China, all varieties of species of life will be there available in China for eating. So human beings are eating everything in some places. Hmm? Cannibals eat human beings also. So there's a gradation, just different categories, so cannibals eat human beings also, right? So what is cannibalism? Human cannibalism is the act or practice of human eating the flesh or internal organs of the human beings. A person who practices this cannibalism is called as a cannibal. This is all happening because of the conditioning of the living entity in this material world, because of the conditioning. So people might take advantages of these words, and take meat eating is granted, because what is said in this verse, doesn't have legs, they are actually food for the who have legs. That means human beings has legs, beings has hands. So does that mean that this verse is saying human beings to eat meat and everything? So because one might think, question may arise in one, that okay, in Bhagavad Gita, in 9.26, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And here in this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni is saying that, okay, human beings are allowed to take, eat any other living being who doesn't have legs and hands, because we have legs and hands. No, actually, people think that it's a contradiction. But in fact, if we truly think, there is no contradiction. We have to understand the vision of an acharya here. Then only we can understand the thing as it is. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport actually what humans can eat, how they have to eat. Everything is explained. Uh, because in human form of life, we are not meant to live like animals. When it comes to human form of life, how do we understand Jivo Jivasya Jivanam? Jivo Jivasya Jivanam is a very, very important phrase in this particular verse. Along with the law of subsistence, actually, as humans, there is also a law of common sense. We have to use our common sense, because stronger living being is making his subsistence on weaker. This does not give license to the stronger human being to exploit the weaker living beings. Humans should not become merciless and kill animals and eat. It is not for humans. As humans, we cannot follow in the footsteps of animals. There is a difference between us and the animals. In one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada, in many of his lectures, he mentioned, right? In Hitopadesha's verse, he quotes always. What is the Hitopadesha verse? Ahara nidra vayamaidhunam cha samanyamitat pashubhir naranam dharmo hitesham अधिको विशेषा धर्मेण हीना pasubhi samana. Both animals and humans share the activities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But the special property of the humans is that they're able to engage in spiritual life. They have higher intelligence, they have inquiry power. Therefore, without spiritual life, humans are on the level of animals. This is from Hitopadesha. Usually people say, because I'm eating nice preparations on a table, I'm civilized, right? The scripture says that although our food may be different, but still our eating and dogs eating are the same. Prabhupada is saying this actually in one of his lectures. We're not civilized just by eating nice preparations on a beautiful, wonderful table. Similarly, the dog can also sleep on this, the dog sleeps on the street without caring for anything. And we cannot sleep without a nice apartment, nice bed, and everything. But both we and the dog are sleeping. And the sex, the dog has no shame. It can enjoy sex on the street. We have some restrictions, but the sex is there, nonetheless. Both are same. And bhaya means defense, protecting, to take care of our fears. That is there in the dog and in us also. So it doesn't make any difference. Maybe we must have discovered atomic bomb for defense. That doesn't mean that we are better than a dog. He defends himself according to his intelligence, and we defend ourselves as humans according to our intelligence. So we understand now human beings and animals have these four businesses in common: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Then what is the special advantage of human life? The advantage is Atato Brahma Jignasa. We should be inquisitive to know the value of life, the absolute truth. The dog cannot do that. That is a distinction between a dog and a human being. In the human form of life, there should be inquiry about Brahman and Paramatma, spirit and the Supreme Spirit. When we attain Brahma Jignasa, knowledge of the absolute truth, that is our perfection, not competing with the dog in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? So that is not the civilization. What animals do is not the civilization. That is not perfection of life also. Foolish persons who are animalistic, like dogs and cats, do not know. They do not know the aim of life. So, as human beings, we have higher intelligence given by the Lord, and that is why a huge body of an elephant will also be controlled by human being with the intelligence of human being, right? We usually see, right, how elephants are controlled by the human beings, horses are controlled by the human beings, everything is controlled by the human being. That means human beings has lots of intelligence. Only in the human form of life we have controlling power. In other species of life, it is not possible, because when we see examples like a lion is there, right? Lion cannot control itself and eat grass, right? The new animals, other species of life, most they don't have any controlling power over themselves. So human form of life is a most advanced form of life among all the species of life. But with our higher intelligence, we are creating more complexities in our life. Instead of understanding self, we are creating more complexities, right? Instead of making it simple and make things easier for us, we are making things complicated in our lives. What is a simple way? Simple way is to live in tune with the environment. Unfortunately, through our intelligence, we are creating a world where we become antagonistic, to the environment in which we are actually living. Of course, now the people are realizing, if we continue to go in this, direction, then we will be the reason for extinction of our own species of life. Basically, there is a danger, awaiting. So, since that human beings have amazing power, actually, they could make this world Vaikunta or, Kunta, which is full of miseries, right? Because we have to use our intelligence. Vaikuntha means Vaikuntha. Kuntha means miseries. Vai means no miseries. So the place where no misery, where there is no miseries. But it is in our hands as humans whether we become like animals with animalistic propensities, or whether we could become human beings and follow all the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada says, right, human beings are not independent. There are scriptures to follow. Every human being is supposed to follow scriptures and lead their life as per the scriptural injunctions, right? So it's up to us basically if we want to make this world as Vaikuntha or Kuntha, just full of miseries, right? So, Srila Prabhupada also says in the purport, right? Exploitation of the weaker living being by the stronger is the natural law of existence. There is always an attempt to devour the weak in different kingdoms of living beings. Srila Prabhupada said that. So now we see, right, even in the countries, there are so many wars are going on, right? Everything is visible in front of our eyes. Like, Ukraine war was going on, right? And how they were Russia and Ukraine war, how many people were actually died on the battlefield, right? And also recently Israel and Hamas, they are doing, see, really it is so painful situation. Countries fighting. There is no possibility of checking this tendency by any artificial means under material conditions. This is Srila Prabhupada's words, he in the purport, from the purport. It can be checked only by awakening the spiritual senses of the human being by practice of spiritual regulations. There is a regulation, the spiritual regulative principles are there. However, these spiritual regulations do not allow a man to slaughter weaker animals on one side and teach others peaceful coexistence. How can one say that, okay, we can maintain peace and all that, and on the other side, if a man is killing the animals, right? How can we live together, animals and humans, right? So this is not actually Srila Prabhupada wanted a Rama Rajya. And without awakening, this called consciousness, actually, Rama Rajya is not possible, right? Also, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the human being is meant for self-realization. The human form of life itself is meant for self-realization. And for that purpose, it is actually the Lord is instructing human beings to eat all kinds of food, the kind of food preparations made with the vegetables, fruits, leaves, and grains. Fruits, leaves, and milk in different varieties, can be offered to the Lord, right? And after the Lord accepts the footsteps, devotee can partake as a prasada. Hmm? By which all suffering in the struggle for existence will be gradually mitigated. This is a process of devotional service. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, of course, patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayashyati tadaham bhaktyupahritam asnami prayatatmanaha. One offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, a water, I will accept it. By offering the food, food will be purified. It's not that Krishna is hungry and begging food from us or something like that. No, the purpose of this offering is to create a loving transaction between us and Krishna. Krishna wants this kind of transactions because Krishna is so affectionate. You love me and I will love you. As God, Krishna's energy creates, sustains, and also, annihilates, So he has so much of power, Why would he beg a leaf or a putram pushpam phalam toyam from us, right? Because he wants to have a loving transaction between him and his devotees. He likes that kind of rasa between, okay? So, but animals cannot follow this instruction of Krishna, right? So animals cannot understand this. Animals cannot also follow the instructions of a spiritual master or scriptures, right? So animals just act according to their own impulses and their own sensual demands, right? They don't have any regulation. But human being is supposed to regulate their sensual demands, according to the instructions of the scriptures. Although one living being depends on the other weaker living being for their subsistence, that does not mean that a human being, kills weaker animals and sustains upon them. A human being cannot exploit weaker animals. Animals eat animals, but we have a choice. We can decide what actually we can do, right? In one of the conversations, actually, Srila Prabhupada mentions to be a real human being means we must have culture and advancement in spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness. Sometimes actually devotees are asked a question from Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, I'm going to refer now some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, I will just share my screen. Okay. I'm going to share my screen now because I want to quote some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam where it is very wonderfully, sweetly mentioned. See, this is a chapter 3, Lord Kapila's teachings to his mother Devahuti. It is mentioned here, the translation, and I'm going to read something from the purport. A devotee, how actually a devotee should be, right? Because by taking this verse, as an advantage, and devotees cannot, or humans cannot do violence. A devotee must execute his prescribed duties, which are glorious, without material profit, without excessive violence. One should regularly perform one's devotional activities. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport is saying that even if a devotee has to commit violence, it should not be done beyond what is necessary. Sometimes the question is put before us. You ask us not to eat meat, but you are also eating vegetables. Do you think that is not violence? The answer is that eating vegetables is violence, and vegetarians are also committing violence against other living entities because vegetables also have life. Non-devotees are killing cows, goats, and so many other animals for eating purposes. And a devotee who is vegetarian is also killing. But here, significantly, it is stated that every living entity has to live by killing of another living entity. That is law of nature. Jivo Jivasya Jivana. This phrase is very important. One living entity is the life for another living entity. But for a human being, that violence should be committed only as much as necessary. Right? Very nice. So we have to commit violence, Srila Prabhupada last sentence. That is natural law because it is ordained by the Lord Himself. The process of destruction, right? Where one animal kills another animal, and also at some point of time we all have to leave this body, right? The body will be actually getting destroyed every day. It is getting destroyed, right? So many atoms are actually taking birth, and so many atoms are killed in our body, molecules are killed in our body. I don't know the scientific knowledge, but everything our body is getting damaged day by day. We are not able to see our body getting damaged because it's not visible to us, right? Only after 4 or 5 years, then if you see our pictures, 4 years back picture and now in this picture, then we can understand, okay, how much change have come in our bodies, right? So that is the process of destruction is ordained by the Lord Himself. So nothing wrong in that. But we should not, however, commit violence extravagantly. Srila Prabhupada is saying, but only as much as ordered by the Lord. Arjuna engaged in the art of killing, and although killing is of course violence, he killed the enemy simply on Krishna's order. In the same way, if we commit violence as it is necessary by the order of the Lord, this is called Nati Himsa. It is not called as himsa, nati himsa, not violence. We cannot avoid violence, for we are put into a conditioned life in which we have to commit violence. But we should not commit more violence than necessary or than ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what Srila Prabhupada says very nicely in the section. I'm going to quote some other thing like, this is fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth canto. It is also mentioned. I think this is the Shiva Gita, Lord Shiva offering prayers. He is actually giving to Prachitas the prayers, what they have to do for the Supreme Lord. In that, it is mentioned, translation is very beautiful. My dear Lord, this is said by Lord Shiva, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. As I already mentioned, the theme of today's verse is the law of subsistence and also the process of destruction ordained by this happening with the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So even Lord Shiva is mentioning that. Everything is being destroyed in the due course of time. The force of time is very strong and everything is being destroyed by something else. by something else. Just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Jivo jivasya jivanam. So it is given by Krishna only. So for animals, there is no karma. But if human beings, if we eat, other living weaker, other weaker animals, then definitely we are going to incur karma. Time scatters everything exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. So in the Srila Prabhupada purport, he's saying the killing process is, he was of course, quoting Srimad Bhagavatam, our today's discussion verse. This killing process is natural. Jivo jivasya jivanam. One animal is food for another animal. A frog is eaten by a snake is eaten by a mongoose, and the mongoose is eaten by another animal. In this way, the process of destruction goes on by the supreme will of the Lord. Although we do not see the hand of the supreme Lord directly, we can feel the presence of that hand through the Lord's process of destruction. So who else can actually do this, right? We are not able to see how directly how the Lord is doing everything, but we can actually sense, we can actually feel the hand of the Lord in everything happening in this material world. We can see the clouds scattered by the wind. Although we cannot see how this is being done because it is not possible to see the wind. Wind we cannot see. Similarly, although we do not directly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can see that He controls the process of destruction. The destructive process is going on fiercely under the control of the Lord, but the atheists cannot, unfortunately, see it. There is also a verse, I just want to go in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is 10:10:9. Unable to control their senses, rascals who are falsely proud of the riches or their birth in aristocratic families are so cruel that to maintain their perishable bodies, which they think will never grow old or die, they will kill poor animals without mercy. Sometimes they kill animals merely to enjoy an excursion. So killing of the animals, violence, he talked about the violence, right? So here, little bit I read here. When the modes of passion and ignorance increase in human society, what is the reason for killing animals? Giving rise to unnecessary economic development, the result is that people become involved with wine, woman, gambling. Then being mad, they maintain big slaughterhouses or occasionally go on pleasure excursions to kill animals. We have seen, right, practical examples like, some, I cannot mention this, but some Bollywood hero actually went on hunting and, killed, some animals, like a deer and everything. So forgetting that, however, one may try to maintain the body is subjected to birth, death, old age, and disease. Such foolish rascals engage in sinful activities one after the other. Animal killing is prohibited. Every living being, of course, has to eat something. Jivo, jivasya, jivanam. But one should be taught what kind of food one should take. Therefore, the Isha Upanishad instructs, Tena tyaktena bhunjitaha. I think first verse. One should eat whatever is allotted for human beings. Whatever is our quota, we should use that. A devotee, therefore, does not eat anything that would require slaughterhouses for poor animals. Rather, a devotee takes prasada of Krishna. Tena paktena bhunjitaha. Krishna recommends that one give him patram pushpam phalam toyam, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water. Animal food is never recommended for human beings. Instead, a human being is recommended to take prasada, remnants of food left by Krishna. Yajna sishta niha, sishta sinaha shanto muchyante sarva kilvishihi. Bhagavad Gita 3.13. If one practices eating prasada, even if there is some little sinful activity involved, one becomes free from the results of sinful acts. This is a wonderful verse. And now, 1 minute, where we are now. Just give me a second. So I'm going to actually, so as long as my sharing is that as long as we are in this material world, as long as we have this material body, we will be in anxiety, right? So we have to somehow, the solution for all these problems is basically we have to get rid of this material body, right? So for that, actually, I'm going to quote a verse from, Srimad Bhagavatam. There was in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 13th chapter, it is talking about Maharaja Nemi's story. Briefly, I will tell in the 13th chapter, the dynasty of Maharaja Nemi. So once upon a time, what happens is because the verse I'm going to quote in this particular chapter is spoken by Nimi Maharaja, who doesn't want this material body, basically. So the pastime is that when Nimi Maharaja wants to perform a great sacrifice, he appointed Vasistha to be the chief priest. So Vasistha refuses because he said he already agreed to be a priest in performing a yajna for Lord Indra. So Vasistha therefore requests Maharaja Nimi, saying that until please wait until Lord Indra's sacrifice is finished, then I'll come and perform your yajna. But Maharaja Nimi did not wait because he thought life is very short. So no, let me do it now. Okay, I don't want to wait because life is very short, not guaranteed, right? So therefore he appointed another priest to perform the yajna. So Vasistha became very angry, and at King Nimi, and and he cursed him. May your body will fall down. And Maharaja Nimi also became very unhappy because of this. He got angry and he retaliated, and he counter cursed. May your body also fall down. As a result of this curse and counter curses, both of them actually died. After this incident, Vasishtha took birth again. How? Because begotten by with Urvashi, some Mitra and Varuna. Actually, he got this material body and he took the birth. Okay, what happened meanwhile? The priests, who were engaged in the sacrifice for King Nimi, those priests actually they preserved Nimi's, dead body with fragrant chemicals and all that. When after the sacrifice was over, the priest prayed for Nimi's life to all the demigods who had come to the arena of Yajna. And Maharaja Nimi, but actually they offered this body to Maharaja Nimi, but Maharaja Nimi actually, he doesn't want to take birth again into this material body. He doesn't want to enter into this material body. So he actually, speaks this word, this verse. This verse is 10 verse. I'm going to share my screen, the 10th verse. Just give me a second. So 10th verse, where actually Nimi, teachings are very nice. And I'm going to end with by this verse. There are 8 minutes left, so I'm going to this is a such a wonderful verse, and also Srila Prabhupada's purport was so good. Deham na varurutseham dukkha shoka bhayavaham sarvatrasya yato mrutyur Matsyana udakeyata. I do not wish to accept a material body. For such a body is the course of all distress, lamentation, and fear. Everywhere in the universe, just as it is for a fish in the water, which lives always in anxiety because of fear of death. Again, jivo jivasya jivanam. Small fish is a food for the big fish in the water. So fish is not able to actually live peacefully. It is always in anxiety because the fish doesn't know when the big fish will come and swallow it, right? So in the purport, actually, same thing, actually, this today's verse is again quoted by Srila Prabhupada. The material body, whether in the higher or lower planetary systems, is destined to die. In the lower planetary system or lower species of life, one may die soon. And in the higher planets or higher species of one may live for a long, long time. But death is inevitable. This fact should be understood. In the human form of life, one should take the opportunity to put an end to birth, death, old age, and disease by performing tapasya. This is the aim of human civilization, to stop the repetition of birth, death, which is called Mritu Samsara Vartmani. This can be done only when one is Krishna conscious or has achieved the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, one must rot in this material world and accept a material body subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. The example given here is that water is a very nice place for fish, but the fish is never free from anxiety about death. Since big fish are always eager to eat a small fish, Falguni Tatra Mahatam, and today's verse, Falguni Tatra Mahitam. No, all living entities are eaten by bigger living entities. This is the way of material nature. Ahastani shahastanam apadani chatushpadam falguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. Bhagavatam, it is mentioning, The Supreme Personality of Godhead has created the material world in such a way that one living entity is food for another. Thus, there is a struggle for existence. But although we speak of survival of the fittest, no one can escape death without becoming a devotee of the Lord. Harim Veena Naiva Sritim Tarante. One cannot escape the cycle of birth and death without becoming a devotee. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.3. Apa Aprapyamam nivartante mruchu samsaravatmani. One who does not attain shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna must certainly wander up and down with the cycle of birth and death. So if you go to today's verse today, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. The main theme is in the first, it is said how weaker, living beings are food for the higher, stronger living entities, and how, because Srila Prabhupada also mentions the purport that how, we have come against the will of the Supreme Lord to this material world, and how we are actually, entangled by the Daivi Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And, we are entangled, and these threefold miseries are kind of, it's a pinching us, right? This Daivi Maya actually pinches, the conditioned souls. If there is no pinch of Daivi Maya, everyone wants to live, in this material world only, right? So Krishna created this Daivi Maya to pinch us, and, with the threefold miseries of Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika, and Adi Daivika. And here, Srila Prabhupada also gives an example of, if a tiger eats a weak animal, including a man, tiger can also eat a man, but it doesn't get any, reaction for that, because this is a law. This is a law of the Supreme Lord. But human beings actually subsist on only grains and everything. So I have quoted many, things, what we should do as a human beings, how we have to take, vegetable preparations, and how we have to offer it to the Lord to reduce our reaction of sinful reactions, because even vegetables have some life in that. And in this verse, second purpose, Srila Prabhupada is talking about, Yudhishthira, shouldn't lament for your, aunt and uncle, because even if they go to forest, even if you believe that when they have gone to the forest, then they can actually survive on the fruits, roots, and everything, and this is the time for them actually to take up vanaprastha ashram and meditate on the Lord and do some tapasya and austerity for their own self-realization or liberation, salvation. And here actually Srila Prabhupada is in the exploitation of weaker by the stronger, and he said different kingdoms it is happening actually unless one actually awakens spiritual consciousness, it is not possible, and follow some regulative principles as humans. Then actually we cannot control this animal slaughtering and all that, and Srila Prabhupada of course wanted Rama Rajya to get established. So that is this verse I just want to share. Thank you so much for tolerating me, dear devotees, and I'm ending my discussion sharing here. Thank you so much, all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for thoroughly exploring this verse. Would devotees like to have questions, reflections? Please share.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, your speaking is very. My computer is not good.
Yeah, your voice is not able to be here, Mataji.
Yeah, my computer is not working properly.
Yeah, Mataji. Thank you so much for attending, Mataji. Anyone wants to share anything regarding?
Thank you for such a nice exploration of this verse, Mataji. Very nice. You explained so many other points about all taken from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, how we are suffering in this material world, the various kinds of sufferings. Very nice exploration. And for thoroughly, explaining Srila Prabhupada, in Srila Prabhupada's mood you explained. So that was, I was able to sense from this that I was really hearing all the teachings of Srila Prabhupada in your lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the encouraging words, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, thank you so much. Mother, we have to echo Prabhupada Prabhu's comment here. Very nice, beautiful class, Mataji. Covered, various aspects of the verse, but how I would say, we've taught in school the food pyramid, right? So the plants, the top apex predators and stuff like that. So they're very beautifully covered many aspects. So as I mentioned, Prabhupada's teachings is all over the place in a good way. It is very nicely mentioned, Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji, so much. Other thing which I was thinking, I've heard devotees say that Jivo Jivasa Jivanam. They said Jiva Goswami is the Jivanam, the life of all Jivas. Jiva Jivasa Jivanam. So always
Yes.
Shri Jiva Goswami. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, Prabhu. Actually, whatever I shared everything is as Paramakarana Prabhu, and you mentioned from Srila Prabhupada only. So everything is dedicated to Srila Prabhupada only. Otherwise, how do even I know? Right? I'm very insignificant. So thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Prabhu, shall we end the call now?
I just want to see whether anybody else had, any other devotees had any questions or comments. Okay, well, thank you, Mataji. I can tell you put a lot of effort and work behind this and preparation. Thank you for taking it so seriously that you have that strong desire to study, to make this accessible for all of us. So hope you're well, and thank you for exploring it very thoroughly. Your first half and then your second half with all the references to various statements by Srila Prabhupada. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Prabhuji. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you. So that I am actually focusing on it. I'm getting benefited, right? So
Yes, that's the secret.
I'm getting benefited. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thoroughly gone into any verse like this, unless because I have to share, I have to go through. So that's actually benefiting myself only.
Yes, and all of us. Vancha kalpatarubhyacha kripo sindhavya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo. Take care, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.